Hello, I'm Tushar Chhabra, and I'm the founder and CEO at CRON AI. I am a part of the ITES committee of the DLC Delhi chapter. Today at DLC Talks, I will be talking about the autonomous future. At CRON AI, we are continuously working towards an AI-enabled autonomous future. Let me tell you a bit about background of myself and why I believe I should share my story and learnings about how AI will influence our lives on a daily basis. I started my career pretty early at the age of 18 as a part of the billion user project at Google. Soon after, I came back to India to found Chanakya Niti, which was one of the first companies which worked on rural data and analytics in India to help companies like Twitter and leading political groups to understand an AI-empowered campaign to reach grassroots levels in India. In 2015, we realized that as we head towards the next generation of autonomy, it will become more and more important for all machines and infrastructure to be able to understand, perceive, and see the world in 3 dimensions. If you look at it today, most of the tasks performed by humans in manufacturing, managing airports, even driving a car, is all about doing a small thing. And that small thing is the capability to see the world around them and perceive it in 3 dimensions. Imagine if AI could do it. And that is what we deliver to machines. We allow machines to see and perceive the world better than humans do. So let's talk about AI today and why AI is so important. I believe that the problem is the way we see AI is slightly blurred. The way we see AI today is from the perspective that AI is some complex algorithm, some complicated things which are meant for large enterprises, meant for larger solutions like autonomous cars, much like CRON AI is delivering to. But no, that is where I believe AI is impacting you in your daily life, and it will start impacting enterprises at the grassroots level in the next decade. It already, for that matter of fact, is impacting them today, but strongly feel that most of the workforces with the current skill sets will not be required in the next decade itself, and AI is going to be the reason. As we move towards the future, AI is impacting small enterprises even today. I strongly believe in the next decade or so, most of the workforces that exist today with the current level of skill sets will become more and more irrelevant. Now let's go back to the evolution of businesses, the evolution of banking, the evolution of mankind. Let's go back a few hundred years today. When we had horses, there was this large industry around them. People who used to take care of your horses, make carriages, feed the horses, the vets. There was an entire infrastructure built around it. Then what happened? We built technology and we got introduced to cars. There was all over the news, people were just talking about how the world will come towards an economic crisis because this entire industry and everybody surrounding it will become irrelevant. But did that happen? No. The most amazing part about this world and technology evolving world we live in is that as technologies take over the task and make humans irrelevant, we find better and more productive tasks. Let's take another example, banking sector. When ATMs were introduced, a large part of the world said now banking people are going to start becoming more and more irrelevant. Why? Because they had just one job at bank. They were tellers. You used to go there, deposit a check. They used to count cash and give it to you. Technology came in, and these people became irrelevant. You do not need a person to give you cash at a bank anymore. So everybody started talking about the mass layoffs which were about to come in the industry. But no, that did not happen. The banking sector started hiring more people than it ever had before. How? The people started interacting with customers, and banks soon realized when they were interacting with these customers, they could sell them better products. They sold them hospitality service, they sold them insurance services, they sold them 100 things. So ATMs did not make humans irrelevant, but they made them get a different task or a different role in the same industry. So why is this history and this part of history and this lesson of history so important to AI? AI is growing on everything you use today. When you talk about the smallest enterprise, how will the smallest enterprise start interacting with AI? There are two parts of the story. Let's start about how AI works, or how companies like CRON AI work towards utilizing AI or use this technology. Deep learning, AI, are extremely data hungry. For any machine to start taking better decisions than humans, the most important part is data. And for automation and AI to become a part of our lives, you need good quality data. This is where countries like India are ahead of the curve today. The amount of data we are generating today is going to make us the future, or a key part of the future, to AI. So we often imagine how AI will lead to the next generation of autonomy and how it will reach the last mile. How will you interact with AI? Let's start with a small example about AI leading to autonomy. We have large infrastructure, large arenas, and we used to have people who used to monitor the flow, understand where the queues are happening, and that was done using a clicker. Believe it or not, people were spending millions of dollars to manage these large arenas and to manage flow of people better. Then came AI, the first generation of AI using cameras, lidars, and AI was able to identify to the last point how people were flowing across an infrastructure and reduce or increase efficiency and reduce wait times by almost 40%, replacing hundreds of people doing security of these arenas. Now, this is just a very small example. This is just the beginning. Now imagine the disruption and how AI will become a force multiplier for a country of the young which is creating enough data on patents today, and how small enterprise and businesses will be able to take advantage of it. How does a local shopkeeper today know what kind of products they should keep in, what kind of goods they should keep in, what would be the recurring revenue they can get, what is the last mile reaching to the customer? And then come these startups from Fresh Marts, etc., who were doing last mile delivery. They said, let's bring some AI into the game. Let's collect the data. They did home deliveries, and everybody was talking about the losses they were making. They were not in the business of selling you rice or delivering rice to you at your doorstep. They were in the business of generating data about what people order. And that is the data which feeds into building the next generation of AI. This AI soon will be able to now predict, based on your patterns, what the nearest retailer or the nearest kirana store to you needs to keep for better revenues, to reduce losses. And this is how AI is already interacting with the small enterprise on a day-to-day basis. Now scale this up. Scale this up to the rural level. Take it to the rural India. The technologies, the AI being built for rural India is targeted on a very, very fragmented data set today to consolidate it, to understand how people behave. Once you can start understanding how people behave, AI can create models to A, mimic them, B, predict what is needed in the future. And that is why the whole dream of self-supervised learning is becoming a bigger reality in the world we live in. We are seeing smaller businesses going at a global scale now just because of AI and the fact that they do not need as many resources in manpower to deliver. What will happen to this human workforce? Let's take another example. You order groceries. One part of it is already automated. He doesn't need 3 helpers. All the tasks of getting the goods together is automated. Now what happens? A person is required to deliver it today. But that's a lifetime of 2 to 3 years. In 3 years, you'll most probably have an autonomous rover come to your home and deliver these goods. And that is where the upscaling of these people will start happening. You cannot stop autonomy from happening, but leverage it. And it is important to start training our workforces for the needs of tomorrow to be able to interact with AI better, to interact and understand autonomy better. But what will happen today? How do we resolve this matter today? The biggest problem at hand is that there's a disconnect between the last mile person who really needs AI or autonomy as a part and AI-based decision-making as a part of what he does in his day-to-day life to increase efficiency, to increase resources. And I mean, it could be anyone. It could be the person running your kirana store to the shop on the corner of your house. Why do these people need it, and why don't they have access to it today? There are two parts of the story. One is when you talk about deep learning and AI-enabled solutions, and real interaction which is happening in labs for larger enterprises as targets. But as scalability comes, as more and more platforms are developed, you will see tools or products which will be built for the billion users of India. And that is the next largest industry, the billion people who will interact with AI. The problem of interaction today is that people believe AI is complex. They do not have enough tools to actually interact with them. But this is changing at the grassroots level today. More and more platforms will be built which will be easier to access, which will be easier to feed your data into, which will be easier to give your data into, and easier, most importantly, to communicate with. As the way you interact with AI will become more and more efficient, you will see adoption at scale. And the way you interact with AI will become a medium between vocal and text-based data, which is critical for a developing country like ours, where most people need to feed data but do not know how to. You cannot expect a kirana store to be interacting with a complicated sheet or a complicated data set. He just wants answers to his problems. And that is where we believe that is the next step of autonomy and AI coming towards us. As a founder of a global deep tech company backed by leading venture capitalists like Yornest Venture Capital, Venture East, and Kitaki Ventures, I've also been accelerated by leading technology accelerators across the world. My personal experiences in setting up global AI-enabled companies, and therefore I can add value to everyone who believes that they want to expand companies globally, raise venture capital, and that's where my exposure comes in. I would like to thank the DLC family for putting together such a strong portfolio where all of us from diverse backgrounds have been able to come together, share our learnings, share our thoughts about the future, and believe that we can add value to each other's life, and this community can grow towards becoming a group of global leaders and entrepreneurs. I would like to thank Mr. Jimmy Mistry for bringing us all together on this marvelous platform, which not only has given us opportunity to connect with each other, but share thought-provoking ideas about the future. Thank you so much.